Hello, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed day 1 and day 2 of the SEAHA Conference. I have the really difficult job of introducing our next speaker. Our next speaker has led the EPSRC and HRC Science and Heritage program. She has been a special advisor for the House of Lords. I actually have a list here because it's a lot of them, so I might forget some. She has been a chairman of the UK National Heritage Science Forum, and she's currently the SEAHA Director and UCL Institute for Sustainable Heritage Director. That's our department. So some of us might take this as a given, but I'm sure that you would agree with me that having Professor Cassar as a speaker to the conference is an absolute privilege. I would like to ask Professor to come to address the conference as our next invited speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Panos. The title of my paper, as you can see, is Heritage Science Economics, a Social Framework. It's something that I developed together with the co-chairs of this conference, both Yoon and Giorgio, but the ideas are entirely my own, and I take responsibility for every single thing that I'm going to be saying. I'm going to kick off with a quotation from Lord Wade of Chorlton, who, in a follow-up to the Science and Heritage inquiry in 2012, said, "You say that government should show some lead. Why government? Why can you not do it among yourselves? There is more expertise in the industry, in research, in this particular science, within all your groups of people who run the various units, than there is ever in government. Government is politicians. What has government got to do it? Why cannot somebody in your organization start showing some initiative and leadership and create a virtual center that would bring all you together? I have seen it done in other fields where people have created what are now international virtual research centers, which government was not involved with at all." And that series of questions were addressed at me when I gave oral evidence, and at that time I had no answers, which left me rather perplexed because I usually have some answers. So I would say, how prescient are these questions by Lord Wade? And today I want to use them as a launchpad for heritage science to promote a different kind of economics, one with society at its core. A heritage science economy that is rooted within a social framework will benefit heritage scientists, because while there is the matter of public policy having to accommodate such a development, this could lead to increased opportunities for an independent heritage science workforce. This also depends, of course, on whether heritage scientists are entrepreneurs. While we cannot influence the market to create traditional jobs, we can help create an environment in which enterprise can flourish. So I have started with two major assumptions. Public policy is receptive, and heritage scientists are enterprising. Why might the Nordic economic model be relevant to heritage science? The Nordic economic model, which is most commonly associated with the countries of Sweden, Norway, Finland, Denmark, and Iceland, combines features of capitalism, such as the market economy and economic efficiency, with social benefits, such as state pensions and fair income distribution. According to the Nordic model, work is the primary means for participating in society. Everyone who can work should do so. The responsibility of a country's leadership is to generate a humming and vibrant economy. The path to such an economy is an alignment with both freedom and equality. Active labour market policies in Nordic countries are designed to keep people connected to the workforce, to impart resilience, and as a social safety net. A social safety net that we can all recognise is government investment in professional training and universities that stimulate the economy. This suggests that a high level of ongoing, thoughtful government investment and intervention, instead of occasional large spurts of stimulus, is what is needed to encourage entrepreneurship. Such a social framework might include rules and regulations and red tape that can occasionally chafe. Now compare this to the belief that the market has its own wisdom, that produces the best results when the rules are dropped, with owners allowing to externalize costs, seizing the moment without worrying about the consequences. The gamble is that what goes up can stay up, yet when the bubble bursts, there are massive losses. So what are the characteristics that we are looking for in the economic employment landscape? We want one that is responsible, dynamic, and responsive to support public education, flexibility, and avoids over-specialization that makes it susceptible to poor administration or over-dependency. Regulation is also an inherent requirement. We have only to look at the lessons to be learned from the financial sector and the importance of risking your own money, not other people's. So in Nordic countries, governments have kept a majority stake as a safeguard to prevent banks from being sold to other foreign banks, with the first step the elimination of shareholder equity in those banks chosen for government intervention. In this way, those responsible for the bank's business and risk management, the owners, suffer losses before anyone else, while the transfer of risk from private actors to the public purse has been accompanied by control and ownership of future profits. Too often, governments have implemented support measures without charging those responsible for the problems properly. This gives rise to the proverbial privatization of profits and socialization of costs, sacrificing resilience in employment. So how does this relate to heritage science, you may be asking yourselves? We are looking for resilience in employment. In avoiding conditions that promote unemployment as a valid economic policy, unlike some, such as the IMF, who are content to allow unemployment to rise because work is not seen as a social activity, but as a means of encouraging investors. Is the market for heritage science a mass market? Is it a price-driven, race to the bottom type of market? How are the skills to be valued, maintained, and enabled to flourish in fluctuating market conditions? Are the skills possessed by heritage scientists transferable and applicable equally in the UK and abroad to both large and small clients, or only to large monolithic organizations? What does a globalized world need to look like for heritage science entrepreneurship to flourish? I propose that by adopting the concept of heritage science economics, we will overcome the factors that many feel socially powerless to solve individually. We have forgotten how successful we are when we have formed social movements. Elsewhere, and at other times, popular action has resulted in socially minded policies and laws. For example, we are celebrating 100 years since women won the vote in the UK and gained equality. So what policies support equality? Accessible education, robust support for families, a healthy work-life balance, active response to climate change, and an abundance of high-paying jobs for young and old alike. By connecting the dots, we realize that these positives present an egalitarian structure. Are we ready to conduct economic experiments that support abundance for heritage scientists as a whole? Are we ready to mobilize to open up a space for a heritage science economy? Are you ready to stand up for yourselves and for your collective interests? There are many positive social aspects to academic accomplishments, a source of confidence invoked by the SEAHA spirit. What kind of economic landscape can we imagine stepping into? If we accept the experience of others, that cultural homogeneity tends to support economic stagnation, then the present experience of a diverse cohort of heritage scientists emerging into a diverse landscape is one of potential economic prosperity. How do we create employment opportunities and build an efficient and modern infrastructure? To what extent can SEAHA and IRIS support heritage science enterprise? I do not doubt the magnitude of the economic transformation that we are seeking. What are the building blocks? A key cornerstone is that brains are an economic resource to a country's prosperity. Who wouldn't develop their resources fully and let a barrier like monetary distribution get in the way? SEAHA offers quality education while reducing financial barriers. Why does it seem revolutionary to invest significantly in education? Surely this will pay off in productivity, but also in the experience of personal freedom. The values of heritage science economics are to have a broad vision harnessed to practical action, relying on solidarity and teamwork, which have at their source the notion of the cohort. This combination of ambition and community promotes both freedom and equality, a willingness to leave a safe harbour, to venture out. There is nothing to fear but fear itself. If opportunities do not exist, they need to be created. Researchers need to feel empowered to set the direction of their discipline. What can we do to help young heritage scientists make their way in a globalized world? We should each be doing more to encourage our students to venture out and to be more entrepreneurial. But the world must also be doing more. There is the need for a change in the social contract between the state and the workforce. What if instead of guaranteeing workers their existing job, government and unions would guarantee ongoing support and retraining for new jobs? What if this included a high level of unemployment insurance as a safety net? There is an economic niche for heritage science entrepreneurs to fill, but what structures might be needed? When there is nothing visible out there to be driven by a vision of what is possible. What is our capacity for vision? Despite the economic realities driven by technology and global competition, how do we design a heritage science economy that provides jobs and income that are not at the mercy of random or international market forces? Globalization is not necessarily mean a race to the bottom, especially for a tiny industry like heritage science, which in terms of size, the only way is up. Globalization might keep this industry small unless we identify where our opportunities lie, remembering that we need to invest in making a new market and not just in participating in what might potentially be a dwindling market. What if we reject a narrative of the status quo and instead embrace an economy that serves our values? How do we prioritize investment in people as part of the strategy to achieve prosperity? Let us look at the human resource and let us refuse to be victims, as that deprives us of agency. Business cycles exist, so they need to be planned for. Only a pessimist would assume that nothing can be done about it. So how can a heritage science economy characterized by enterprise be enabled? A social framework emphasizes the development of human capital, guiding the economy for the common good. Such a framework would work as a resilient buffer, providing reliable stars to navigate the oceans of deregulation that give the financial sectors the chance to act in their own short-term interests. It is not easy for smaller industries to focus on their own vision when other bigger stakeholders might be telling them that they are wrong. But by banding together, heritage scientists could take the initiative and lead the creation of a social framework in which heritage science economics could thrive. How could such a framework be developed? Following what Lord Wade said, heritage science entrepreneurs might first decide what they could do together and for each other. This would put everyone in a stronger position to negotiate on any practical support from elsewhere that might be needed. The economy is the net effect of individual actions. By discovering the advantages of working together, investing in each other increases not only efficiency, but also innovation. Heritage scientists, too, can develop their own society, creating a social movement, discovering the advantages of working together, and thus reducing the resources required for change. The Nordic model supports many different types of cooperatives. This autonomous association of persons, united voluntarily to meet their common economic, social, and cultural aspirations through jointly owned and democratically controlled enterprise, takes many forms: consumer cooperatives, worker cooperatives, housing cooperatives, multi-stakeholder cooperatives, and credit unions. Cooperative businesses are typically more economically resilient than many other forms of enterprise. With twice the number of cooperatives, about 80%, surviving their first 5 years compared with other business ownership models, about 41%. Cooperatives frequently have social goals, which they aim to accomplish by investing a proportion of trading profits back into their communities. So how could this work for heritage science economics? Instead of the race to the bottom, let's embrace small is beautiful. A community can be created among heritage science alumni and students. Study circles could be formed to explore how wealth can be created and distributed. The balance of power can be shifted by making strategic alliances with industry. Vocational counselling and job training resources can be developed for members seeking career development. Utilising SEAHA's powerful promotion of the agency of women, even to get into politics. Earning a living, indeed a good one, is at the heart of heritage science enterprise. So finance and insurance for heritage science to help entrepreneurs club together cooperatively will be needed to create startups and provide bridging when times get tough. low-interest loans could help increase economic activity. Nor did housing cooperatives support housing banks. Could the Heritage Science Cooperative support a heritage bank to keep businesses going, provide opportunities for others, and keep people off benefits? I made a passing reference earlier to credit unions. A credit union is a member-owned financial cooperative controlled by its members and operated on the principle of people helping each other, providing its members credit at competitive rates as well as other financial services. Worldwide, credit union systems vary significantly in terms of total assets, starting from volunteer operations with a handful of members. Credit unions differ from banks and other financial institutions in that those who have accounts in the credit unions are its members and owners, electing their board of directors in a one-person, one-vote system, regardless of the amount invested. Credit unions see themselves as different from mainstream banks, with a mission to be community-orientated and serve the people, not the profit. Could a credit union help adjust the heritage science economy? Knowing that there will be business cycles, a heritage bank or credit union could drive entrepreneurship and opportunities. Heritage scientists need access to infrastructure. Archives, data, tools, mobile instruments, and advanced laboratories. The traditional approach is to seek employment in public or private heritage or academic institutions. But jobs are hard to create at the best of times. So how can we support an independent, enterprising heritage science workforce with access to infrastructure? This ambition is beginning to be realised with the launch of the UK hub of the European Research Infrastructure for Heritage Science, ERIS. The UK government supported the inclusion of heritage science in the ESFRI roadmap until 2020. Beyond 2020, the UK government will need to make a further commitment to sustain ERIS UK and to support the development of a network of heritage science laboratories in universities and independent research organisations across the UK, which will act as platforms for research and science, training and engagement. ERIS will need to have a policy for individual users in the future. This may require appropriate accreditation, maybe a heritage science research passport, so that independent heritage science entrepreneurs can access infrastructures at ERIS UK member organisations. So how will we know that a social framework for heritage science economics has been successful? From the number of young heritage scientists prepared to cluster together to create enterprises, from the creation of alternative industry-specific forms of financing, and from the number of large heritage institutions and universities willing to give access to their infrastructure to heritage science entrepreneurs. In conclusion, in this presentation, I have shared my vision of how a heritage science economy might be enabled. Instead of obstacles, I have highlighted possibilities drawing on the Nordic economic model to propose a community-led approach, socially driven financial structures, and shared infrastructures, suggesting that it is possible to do heritage science differently in the future. These ideas do rely, however, on the willingness of individuals to be enterprising, to take risks, to have a vision of working together for the common good. The vision of a heritage science economy is to free all individuals by increasing opportunities and by making the market aware of the value that heritage science can bring to society. If you think these ideas are fanciful, think again. The UK industrial strategy focuses on place. The UK excels in scientific capability. This combination of expertise and infrastructure could in future reach places where fragile and vulnerable heritage is present in abundance, among fragile and vulnerable communities, such as in Cromer, Great Yarmouth, Grimsby, Lowestoft. The list is infinite. And this week, the Heritage Lottery Fund Great Places scheme announced funding for 16 areas in England to pilot new approaches that enable cultural and community groups to work more closely together and to place heritage at the heart of the community. The opportunity to propagate a social framework for heritage science economics, to develop local skills so that communities can care for their heritage while making heritage a beacon for economic regeneration is there for the creating. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Thank you for a very interesting presentation, May. I would like to see the UK move into a Nordic model. You might be surprised to hear, but the only way for the whole economy to do it would take more than 5 years in government. And the only way I think it could happen would be if there was a referendum. Would you be supportive of such a referendum to change the economic model to a Nordic model economy as a whole over a 20-year period, for example?
I would say that you do not need to change the current economy, which is beyond what any of us can actually do. I think the starting to work together and to come together and collaborate is something that actually can happen slowly and surely, even in the current economic climate. So my premise in writing this paper was actually we're dealing with what we have, and that's where we begin to work. We can't change the macroeconomic situation, but we can change what we are able to do for ourselves and how we do it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, mate. Truly visionary, and we didn't expect anything less. Thank you very much. I just wonder, the current governmental narrative is enshrined in the current industrial strategy. How does your vision dovetail with the strategy?
It dovetails in as far as the industrial strategy, and certainly the current minister at Bayes, Greg Clark, is very, very much interested in how the industrial strategy can help lift out of poverty towns and cities in the UK. It is not an accident that the Heritage Lottery Fund has got the Great Places scheme. All this, you can see it locking together quite neatly. I think what we need to be clever at is actually seeing the opportunities and the hooks and actually inserting ourselves into that mainstream narrative. And I think both with the industrial strategy and with the announcement 2 days ago, as it happened, by HLF of 16 places being given approximately £1.5 million each, simply to focus on communities and culture, how we can actually support those initiatives. And I think we have ample means to do that. And I think the SEAHA brand is a very strong one to enable us to do that. It's evolution rather than revolution. You know, it may sound revolutionary, but I think it's not a question of trying to change what, you know, the big picture. It's trying to see where we fit into that framework. Because we were excluding ourselves.
Thank you, May, for a great talk. I have a question about possibly the elephant in the room, which is Brexit.
Yeah.
In the strategy you outlined, do you foresee industrial ties or educational ties being enhanced with, let's say, countries beyond Europe, for example, North America or other parts of the world, while simultaneously European ties being strengthened? Do you feel there are shifts happening at the moment in terms of those dynamics? Or do you feel, for example, US, UK, these dynamics will continue evolving as they have in the past? Thank you.
UCL is international, SEAHA is international, Brexit is what it is. We're going to continue to work as strongly at an international level. We have strong ties with Europe, but we have strong ties across the globe. It just doesn't, as far as I'm concerned, it's business as usual. We just have to continue to drive the message that we are an international organisation with an international brand. Brexit is what it is.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Right, thank you. Thank you.